So if you look in the pews, you'll see there are little scraps of paper like this. Some pencils, maybe, I hope. What I'd like you to do is take a moment and think about something that brings you joy, an activity, something that brings you joy. And I would like you to write it on that piece of paper and give it or put it in the basket that the ushers will send around in a minute. But first, I guess Stephanie has some extra pencils if they are needed. So just take a minute or two to think about what brings me joy that I would like to share with other people. That's your task. What brings you joy that you like to share with other people? And when you're done, I'm going to ask Doug and Stephanie to send baskets around so we can collect all these joys. And choir, of course, you would pick this Sunday to be upstairs. You guys are doing it your own. So while this is going on, I'm going to talk. We can do two things at the same time, right? We can do good. So I've told you this story before about my great-grandmother, Regina. During the rationing measures that were imposed in Poland after the war, it was hard to get certain grocery items. And my great-aunt Annie, Regina's daughter-in-law, who was living in the United States, offered to mail some basic staples like dried milk or powdered eggs. And Regina said no and told her to send white sugar, almonds, and cocoa. Annie was taken aback. Why would she want these useless items? Her response was, she wanted to make a cake. After years of war and want, followed by oppressive rule under Stalin and the Soviet Union, she didn't need powdered eggs and powdered milk. She needed joy. And being Regina, she'd bake it herself, darn it. We are knee-deep in round 3 of another contentious presidential election, divided around every imaginable issue, with so much at stake and a great deal of uncertainty about who will win. Fears are being exploited, stoking undercurrents of violence that threaten to erupt, that do erupt, tearing at the fabric of our constitutional republic. And no matter the outcome in November, I don't see any of this dissipating soon or easily. And that's just this country. There's a lot happening around the world that is disheartening, cruel, and destructive to both people and the planet. And frankly, there's not a heck of a lot that I or any of us can do about it. I can't make the people in Pennsylvania or North Carolina or any of the other swing states vote the way that I want them to. And I can't stop world leaders from waging war and violence against others or their own peoples. So how can I talk about joy in these times? Because we are going to need every tool of spiritual resilience in our toolbox. And joy is one of them. Not as a form of denial or pretending that everything is okay, but as a counter-testimony to the hate and fear that is being propagated. Being told that immigrants take our jobs or eat our pets or commit violence against our loved ones feeds a fearful imagination. If we are already feeling alienated and left behind, if we already feel like we are losing power and thus status to people who are different than us, it is easy to take that story into some pretty dark directions. The end game is hopelessness and a lack of imagination around the possibilities of our humanity. This is the imagination of scarcity. If someone has something or is being given something, something that should be mine by right of birth or gender or race or religion or nationality, then there's less for me. And that makes me angry and that makes me afraid. That's what fear does to our imaginations. Joy sparks a different kind of imagination. Our readings today, one ancient, one modern, both ground joy in awe, in wonder, in humility and gratitude. The pastures are perfumed with dew, the hills deck themselves with joy. The meadows adorn themselves with flocks. The valleys gown themselves with grain. They shout for joy. They join in song, sings the psalmist. No matter what they tell you, let it be about joy. Let it be about the sacred. Let it be about blooming, the unfolding of the universe through you, because the story of you, every one of us, begins 15 billion years ago with that first flash of being, observes Nita Penfold. Joy begins by being fully engaged with life, with the natural world, with the cosmos, with the sacred and the divine, and seeing the world through those lenses. Joy reminds us to pay attention to everything happening around us, not just the bad stuff, and reaffirms our connection to everyone, to all life. I'm going to ask Doug and Stephanie to pass those baskets around again, and this time I want you to take one of those joys out of the basket. I'm going to continue talking. And choir, if you've done that, you can share your joys with each other. And if you're at home, well, when you're at home, we can put them in the chat. Take a joy, take a joy. A joy that is different than your joy. We've swapped the basket, so you shouldn't get your own joy back. So joy, although it's sometimes confused with happiness, is not the same thing as happiness. David Brooks highlighted their differences in an op-ed he wrote for the New York Times in May 2019 after he attended a college graduation. He wrote, "There are two kinds of emotions present at any graduation ceremony. For the graduating students, there is happiness. They've achieved something. They've worked hard and are moving closer to their goals. There's a different emotion up in the stands among family and friends. That emotion is joy. They're not thinking about themselves. Their delight is seeing the glow on the graduate's face, the laughter in her voice, the progress of his journey, the blooming of the whole person. Happiness usually involves a victory for the self. Joy tends to involve the transcendence of self. Happiness comes from accomplishments. Joy comes when your heart is in another. The core point is that happiness is good, but joy is better. It's smart to enjoy happiness, but it's smarter still to put yourself in situations where you might experience joy. Joy as a transcendent experience means that it is greater than any of us, infinite in its gifts to all of us. Should we recognize it and honor it? It reminds us that the universe doesn't revolve around us, and it's not there to serve our needs only. This world, this life, and the people we share it with come with both gifts and burdens we did not earn. Joy is not a right or a privilege, something that we should get so as not to experience pain or sorrow. To be human is to be conscious of the world around us, including life and death, love and hate, fear and hope, possibilities and failure. Joy not only gives lie to theologies of fear and scarcity, joy invites hope and invites us to act and fight on behalf of that hope. If there are amazing, beautiful, wondrous things in this world, if love is at the center, infinite in its capacity to hold us all, then we can't afford to give in to despair and helplessness. We may not be able to convince people to choose hope over fear, or the candidate we want may not win. We are going to be in these tough, divided times for a while, which makes recognizing and lifting up joy even more important because it reminds us what's at stake. My great-grandmother did not make the cake for herself, for her own happiness. She made it because she knew that baking and sharing cake is an act of love that inspires joy, and it brings people together around a table. She couldn't stop Hitler or Stalin or the armies. She couldn't stop the terrible things happening around her. But she could bake a marvelous cake that brought joy to anyone who had a slice. That was her counter-testimony, her resistance to fear and want. A simple act of joy. So does anybody want to share what joy they received?
Puzzling out solutions.
A beautiful walk in the woods with family and/or friends.
Growing flowers and knitting.
Playing games and doing puzzles.
Good food, good cooking also.
Good food and good cooking also.
Watching our backyard critters, especially blue jays.
Hearing my family laugh when we're playing games and/or telling jokes and stories.
The first crisp air of autumn after a long, hot summer. Hiking with my dog.
Music, flowers, sunsets, walking, conversations.
My family.
Seeing wildlife on my walks in the woods.
Choir, you want to shout anything from the, from the balcony? Sure.
Creation brings me joy,
Creation brings me joy,
bringing beauty, however imperfect, into the world.
bringing beauty, however imperfect, into the world. Catching a new Pokemon, Pokemon Go. That happens in our parking lot here a lot, I see. Finishing a jigsaw puzzle. This group likes puzzles. I didn't know that about you. I've been here for 20 years and I didn't know you like puzzles so much. Singing harmony in a choir when it all comes together, which it always does, as we know. Any other invitations to joy? Grandkids and a good cigar, okay. Not together. So, let's gather all of those up, those invitations, because we're going to need them as we go out into the world. Thank you for taking the time to do that.